Ask Alec.
Hey guys, it's Alex Torelli, and welcome back to an episode of Ask Alec. This question comes from multiple readers. Actually, ironically, I got this question 3 or 4 times this week, and basically it's all different variants of the same question, which is, what can you expect in terms of how long the luck will last in poker? And I got this question from a guy who plays live poker recreationally, wanting to know, he's dealing with a lot of bad beats, wanting to know sort of when does it all end and when will the skill overcome the luck, and when could he expect to show a profitable return? And I also got this question from an online player who's played like 100,000 hands of 6 max online, wondering sort of the same thing. I guess my answer to this question in general is that most people underestimate, in my experience coaching, working with students or clients, talking to people, most people underestimate the duration that you can get lucky or unlucky in poker, especially when it comes to online poker. So if you're playing, this is sort of different for online and live, and the reason it's different, and the reason you have to measure these two things differently, is because online poker, your win rate is going to be smaller because there's less information at the table and the games are more competitive, they're tougher, and so even the best players have a much, much smaller win rate. And when you have a lot smaller of a win rate, what that means is that the variance is going to be higher and it's going to take longer to reach the long run. It's also true that the variance is higher in online poker because, of course, you can't see other people, so you can't make extremely certain reads in spots where you can live, where you're just like 100% sure, not 100, but you're extremely sure that someone's bluffing or that they're not bluffing, and you could make big folds or big calls with a high degree of certainty. You can't really do that online. The second thing is that you're only playing 100 big blinds deep online, and so that increases the amount of variance and volatility and diminishes the edge. So in online poker, I would say that, without being too specific about the numbers, like just a rough guess would be something like the amount of variance you could expect to incur is something like tenfold what it is when you play live cash games. Now, a lot of it depends on your playing style and how difficult the competition is. So one way to automatically lower variance, and I encourage a lot of my clients and students to do this, is to play a winning style, but just to play a tighter version, a lower variance version of the style that you currently play. So a lot of the hands, or a lot of the situations that are sort of borderline that come up in your game, you could choose to avoid them by playing a little bit tighter. Now, the key caveat to keep in mind here, and I'm sort of want you to take this with a grain of salt or a little bit of caution, is that the problem that happens when people try to do this is they don't do it correctly. And so they just end up playing tighter overall, which leads to them playing a more predictable ABC game. The key is sort of avoiding the high variance situations, but at the same time, not letting yourself become super predictable and ABC so that your opponents catch on to this. And then suddenly your attempt to lower your variance ends up costing you money because you're playing worse. So you got to be careful not to do that. But at the same time, you could also lower variance by playing a different style of poker than you normally play, but also playing in games where you have a lot bigger edge, or you have a higher win rate, or you could game select more, because that's going to increase your win rate, reduce your variance, and get you to play hands in more spots where you're certain about the decisions you're making, which is ultimately going to lead to a higher return. So it's a little bit different for online and live poker. It's different for depending on your playing style. It's different depending on the games you're playing. So it's hard to answer this question just as a blanket, but like just a blanket statement. But I would say in general, people underestimate the amount of luck, and people expect to win in the short term, and they let the problem, I don't even feel like, isn't that there's variance involved in the game of poker. It's that people sort of let the short-term results get to their head, and then instead of like reaching the long-term because they're outplaying the variance, what they end up doing is adjusting their playing style for the worse because of the fact they lost on the first day, the second day, the third day, and it gets to their head. And then on the fourth day or the fifth day, it's not that they're now playing the same A game they were playing before. They're actually playing a suboptimal game. They're playing worse. They're playing more conservative. They're playing more like obvious or straightforward. They're not going for it in certain spots. They're scared to bluff. Their mindset is negative, etc. And now they think that they're playing their A game. and they think that, okay, the variance is going to even out. But in reality, they're playing B-level or C-level poker, and then their losing streak perpetuates for a lot longer than it otherwise would if they were on a winning streak to begin with. So it's easy to play well when you're winning, and it's easy to keep your A game going, keep up that aggression, be fearless, go for it in those big spots, and just play your best game. The challenge is really to keep a level head even when you're losing. And it's not so much that you incur variance, but it's that you react negatively to the variance, which causes you to play worse. So I would encourage people to focus on the methodology of playing and focus on the strategy, focus on making good decisions, and not really let the variance get to them when it comes to how they're likely to be making their playing decisions in the game. So the worst thing you could do is lose the sort of edge that you have by being fearless and play poker from a place of fear because you're scared about the variance. If you ever feel like that's happening, it's definitely time to quit the game because you're not going to win. Now, in live poker, the good news is that, you have a much bigger win rate. Your edge is much bigger. There's certain spots where, you could be winning like 20, 30, 50 big blinds per 100 hands just because you're in a game with like a massive fish that's just dumping money. There's spots that you can actually achieve this. The problem is that because you play so fewer hands per hour, that it might take longer in terms of time duration to reach that long run. It'll take shorter in terms of hands, but if you don't play poker often, it might feel like you're losing for a long period of time. So I had a recreational player write to me and say, oh my gosh, I've been losing for like a month. But they might play like 5 or 6, 7 sessions in that month. And so it feels like this losing streak is drawn out, but in reality, it's a pretty small sample size and it's a pretty small losing streak. And I feel like it's not about the losing that's really the problem. It's just about letting it get to your head. So I would say, not like just plan on potentially incurring these swings and just be risking a percentage of your bankroll or your net worth, whatever, that you're okay mentally with losing as well as financially. Of course, you want to be fiscally responsible, but it's also important that even if you are fiscally responsible, that you're mentally responsible, because the biggest problem with going on a slight downswing or whatever is that to get out of it, you're going to have to play even better poker than you played to get into it, because you're going to have to make some adjustments, play your A game. And if that's not happening because of the fact that you're losing or you're tilted or you're adjusting or you're afraid of the money or you're concerned, then you're really in a pickle, right? Then you've like backed yourself into a corner and you're sort of screwed. So my advice to you would be definitely gamble with an amount that you're comfortable losing and be prepared for some of the swings that you could expect to face in live poker or online poker, especially in tournament poker. So I talked a bit about live and online with respect to cash games, but all this is doubled or tripled or quadrupled if you're playing tournaments, simply because of the nature of the beast. You know, the best players in the world cash 15 or 20% of the time, so that automatically is going to increase the swings dramatically. Whereas the best cash game players in the world, win 60, 70% of their sessions, and that's, double, triple, quadruple the amount of times they win in tournaments. So the variance is way bigger in tournaments, and you have to be prepared for that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave me your thoughts with your comment below. Let me know what's your problems with downswings. If you have questions about it, I will try and include them in future videos right here on Ask Alec. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up if you like it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.